So today we are talking about paraphrasing Shakespeare, one of the challenges that every high school student must face. And unfortunately, because of today's digital environment, the ease with which we can spread information about, a lot of shortcuts have been created such that you do not have to do this anymore. And I find that that's unfortunate, because we don't paraphrase Shakespeare in high school English classes just because we want to paraphrase Shakespeare. We paraphrase Shakespeare because it is one of the most exceptional critical reading activities that you can be involved in. It's challenging yet understandable language in English, and it is modern English. It's not Middle English or Old English. Please do not make that mistake. Middle English and Old English are different language groups that you would not understand if somebody spoke them to you. This is modern English. Elizabethan English, if you'd like to be more specific. So when you're reading Elizabethan English, which is a language very similar to your own, and you're paraphrasing it into something that is very, very close to your own, something that you can understand, then you are critically reading. And if you can do that, then you can critically read almost anything. And trust me, when you enter college, you will find texts that are probably a lot more challenging to you than Shakespeare. So today what I want to do is model a technique by which you can paraphrase a passage of Shakespeare's. I'll give you a step-by-step process. It'll seem a little bit cumbersome at first, but these processes usually are, and the more you do it, the faster it becomes. And remember, the Oxford School of Shakespeare should help you out. So let's go through step by step. The first step in paraphrasing this is to read the entire line. A line, keep in mind, and those of you who are working in theater know what I mean by a line. I don't mean a physical line on the paper. I mean from the time that somebody starts speaking to the time that they stop. Now, a line could be in Shakespeare as short as a word or two, or it could be as long as a few pages. It depends upon whether they're delivering a speech or engaging in conversation. And obviously, when they're engaging in conversation back and forth very fast, it'll be easy to understand. You'll primarily focus on paraphrasing challenges with longer speeches, because that's when Shakespeare's poetry becomes thick, rather ornate, and sometimes a little challenging. So if you are reading a very long speech, read the entire line? Maybe not. You might want to chunk it, divide it into pieces, and that might make life a little bit easier for you. And where will the natural breaks be? We'll determine how to do that, how to find those in a moment. All right. Secondly, you need to define difficult words. Words that challenge you, that you cannot define from context, or you're not quite sure about the definition from context, define them, circle them, and define them. So you've read the entire thing, you go back, you circle some words that may give you challenges. Now, the Oxford School of Shakespeare will define a lot of those challenging words, thankfully. So you probably won't have to have a dictionary on you most often when you're reading, although it can't hurt. Next, read the side notes. Because the side notes not only define difficult words, but they will also help you understand figures of speech or allusions especially. Somebody define allusions for me. Chris. That's right. Reference to something outside. Now, it could be a reference to literature, but quite often Shakespeare's making references to the politics or society of his own time, which you would not know in the slightest bit. So how would you understand a very subtle and indirect Elizabethan reference? You won't, unless somebody has done the research and uncovers it for you. And that's what the editors of these books have done. So quite often I have uncovered mountains of material in Shakespeare that I didn't know existed because of the side notes uncovering a lot of those allusions for me. The end of paraphrasing is rewriting. And as an activity in class, quite often I will ask you to actually rewrite. Take out a piece of paper and rewrite a line. But when you're reading on your own, you should probably just sort of do this in your brain. And of course, the faster you become, the more practiced you are at doing this, the easier it is to paraphrase in your mind. So as you're reading Shakespeare, you're paraphrasing. Those of you who are fluent in a foreign language know what I'm talking about. Because as you hear a foreign language, the translation into another language, maybe your source language or your native language, is just immediate. It's not a laborious process by which you must translate every single word. It's just the one-to-one connection is fast and almost automatic. and it will become that way as well. But at first, it'll be slow, and I'll ask you to do it in slow fashion on an extra sheet of paper. There are two ways to rewrite, two ways to paraphrase. One is if you're really in a hurry and you don't need to analyze the entirety of this line, you don't really need to suck out all the poetry of this challenging bit, then just condense it really quickly into a very brief form. If you're looking at a more important speech and you want to understand every last thing that Shakespeare is talking about in there, then you should paraphrase keeping it roughly as long as the original line. Which is best? It depends upon what the teacher is asking you to do. It depends upon the particular nature of the line and what's going on in Shakespeare at the time. So, reviewing. Read the whole thing, define difficult words, read the side notes, and then rewrite in your own words. This will involve circling, underlining, highlighting, whatever you'd like to do, and do not forget that you own those books, so I would encourage you to mark them. Here's our example. We will use a common example today, not one drawn from any one of your books, and of course I will ask you to do some paraphrasing today after we have finished going through this. This is Hamlet. Please, let's pause for a moment on an unrelated topic. I want to teach this once. It's very easy, and then I want you all doing it this way. That's a standard citation technique for Shakespeare. What do the three numbers refer to? Ryan. Nope. Act, scene, and then what? Line numbers. It's essential to have line numbers in Shakespeare. Now, line numbering is sometimes different, a little bit different from edition to edition. So I do like that we are all on the same edition, and the line numbers should be consistent. You may see some differences in the citation techniques, like using Roman numerals. Maybe somebody does this. It doesn't matter. 3 pieces of information: act, scene, line number. And that's all you need for citation. Now, if you were doing a research paper on the works cited page, you would cite which specific edition of Shakespeare you were using. But in-text citations, all you need is that. Yeah.
So that's for in-text citations, and then the works cited page is cited by the book.
Correct. Noting the publisher and the editor. Because real Shakespeare scholars want to know whose edition you're reading. It sometimes differs from edition to edition. But in text, you only need that information. And remember, if you have said in Act 2, Act 1, Scene 2, I shouldn't have written the 2. In Act 1, Scene 2, gosh, I blanked on the name for a moment, Claudius. In Act 1, Scene 2, Claudius delivers a speech before the kingdom of Denmark. He notes, blah, 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 blah. What do I need in the parentheses? Line, because I already have the act and scene in my sentence. So I just need 1 to 16. That's in-text citation for Shakespeare. When you read the introductory materials in your edition, you'll find that they're citing in that way. So please, when you do it that way as well. Do not, even though we're all in the same edition, do not cite by page number. Nobody does that. Nobody citing Shakespeare or ancient Greek texts, for that matter, cites by page number. They always cite by line number, and for Shakespeare, act and scene as well. So let's paraphrase. What are we doing first? All right, I'll do it. And I'll set it up a little bit. This is Claudius. Claudius is giving a speech to the kingdom of Denmark. This is early in the play, obviously, second scene. And a bit of upheaval has just occurred. The former king is dead. Former king's name is Hamlet, by the way. It's kind of confusing sometimes because they Hamlet Sr., Hamlet Jr. Hamlet Jr. is still alive. He's a young man. Scholars have estimated anywhere between 25 and 30. Hamlet Jr. Hamlet Sr. is dead. Hamlet Sr.'s brother, Claudius, has taken the throne. So he has just assumed control of Denmark. And he has married Hamlet's mother, so his former sister-in-law. And yes, trust me, the scholars love the connections to Oedipus and the ancient Greeks there. So Hamlet's mother has married his uncle, There's a little bit of incestuous dealings going on. And of course, this is your source story for the Lion King. So what did Claudius do? He killed the former king. So if you want to think about this context, think about the Lion King. Think about, imagine that Scar is delivering a speech in front of the Pride Land saying, hey, you know what, I'm sorry Mufasa's dead, but we've got to go on with our lives. In fact, such a speech exists in the film, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, so this is that speech. However, it's not so insidious, because the entire kingdom of Denmark thinks, hey, this is a good guy, right? Sad that the king's dead, but Claudius is all right, let's go on with ourselves. And Claudius is nowhere near as villainous as Scar is. Scar is very obviously a villain. Claudius is not so. All right, so here we go. So when he's talking about Hamlet, he's talking about Hamlet Sr. Though yet of Hamlet our dear brother's death the memory be green, and that it us befitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him together with remembrance of ourselves. Therefore, our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress to this warlike state, have we, as 'twere with a defeated joy, with an auspicious and a dropping eye, with mirth and funeral and dirge in marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along, for all our thanks. Well, when I said read the entire line, I also said that if it's a bit long, you may want to divide it into portions. Somebody want to help me out with divisions? Where might we want to divide the line? Mitch? Okay. After woe, because for two reasons. What's one of your reasons? Punctuation. Excellent. Use punctuation in poetry to mark divisions. Also, the word yet is a nice transition word, so we know that there's a division between two different ideas. Where else? More hands. Paul.
After ourselves is gap punctuation, therefore would be another.
Very good. More? Brian? I think actually you're close. I think we might look, instead of after state, we might look at the division by the dashes. We might think that that's another section. So we kind of have this section starting here and then ending here. And I would say that there's one last that we might do. All right, so we've divided it. Now, second step. Define difficult words. Sydney, you want to start us off? Which word's giving you a problem?
Well, just on the bottom, towards the bottom,
Yep.
it says, this with mirth and funeral and dirge.
Which words?
Well, like mirth and dirge.
Good. Mirth and dirge. Others? Auspicious. Yes. Others? Yes. Jointress. Very good. Anything else? You want to try to define them from context? Anybody want to give a shot on those or know them already? Defining by context. Mitch.
Well, mirth and funeral, because he's talking about a funeral, probably somewhere related to sadness.
You would think so, but look at mirth and funeral and dirge and marriage. Shakespeare's playing with the language a little bit. Anybody know the meanings of mirth or dirge?
Mirth more joy, and dirge is more
See, Mitch, by context clues, you'd think, oh, wait, mirth is sadness and dirge is happiness, but actually he's flipped them around. He said, we had a happy funeral and a sad marriage. Why? No, he's not revealing that. That's a good guess, Sydney. But Claudius is not revealing his part in the murder. Yep. Hold on, Abby.
Like celebrating, like, his brother's life, but then he's upset because he has to marry his sister.
Oh, that's a good guess also. Actually, he's not upset because he has to marry his sister. He's very happy that he's marrying his sister, which we may think is a little... By the way, Hamlet, during this entire speech, is like off to the side there, being all miserable, looking at him like, what are you talking about? You're a loon. So he's being very angry, and the rest of them are all excited. He's excited to marry his sister-in-law. The point is that the marriage is a happy time, which has sort of brought happiness to the funeral, like the funeral's not quite so bad, but the marriage is not quite so good because they just held a funeral. So you have this very happy time infecting the bad time, and this very bad time infecting the happy time. And that's why Shakespeare plays with the poetry a little bit to say mirth and funeral and dirge and marriage. So the context clues don't always clue us in because Shakespeare plays tricks and games. What about auspicious or jointress? Yeah, Ryan.
Jointress is talking about the queen, saying how
How do you know it's a queen?
because imperial means.
There's something about that word, jointress.
Well, it's the tress.
That's right, the feminine ending. And then, so,
It's saying like the person involved in
well, you've got the woman joining, so it's a female partner, right?
Yeah.
Join is to join, partner with the S on the end, so you've got a female partner. So she's joining me. She's my partner in managing this warlike state. State being, of course, the state of Denmark, which is nearly in a state of war at this point. Auspicious? All right. Andy, see if auspicious is in the little one. If we have silence, we must refer to the resource. So we'll see what the dictionary has to say. Excellent, Mitch. Yeah, so suspicious and auspicious only differ in the prefix. So the question is, of course, what does the prefix aw mean? A-U. Does it have it? Auspicious.
Favorable.
I'm sorry?
Favorable.
Favorable. Excellent. Favorable. So, do you see the contrast again? Auspicious, favorable, contrasts what? Not just suspicious, I mean something that's in the line. Dropping. The dropping eye is the sad eye, and the auspicious eye is the happy eye. So we're carrying this happy, sad contrast through these couple lines. All right, we've looked at words. We might look at some side notes now to see if it's helping us out any, and we'll skip that along because we don't have the side notes in this particular edition. Besides, there aren't all that many, there are no allusions to any sort of cultural information you would not know, that you would not glean from the rest of the story, as it were. And there are a couple figures of speech, similes, and so on that we can already understand. So let's take a look at the first part. Though yet of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, and that it us befitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Who wants to give it a shot? Oh, Chris. Yes, okay. We are all sad that Hamlet died. And furthermore, what about the memory be green? What does green mean in this context, Navina? New memory. He recently died. Body's not even cold. Okay, so we're really sad. And it befitted us, which means it's natural. Okay, so even though we're sad that Hamlet's dead, good enough. Yet so far hath discretion fought with nature that we with wisest sorrow think on him together with remembrance of ourselves. Mitch. Look at that together with remembrance of ourselves bit. Do you want to give it a shot? Chris? You dropped off a little bit there, which speaks to me of unsurety, but try it. We have to remember his life and apply his own life to our own. It's a good guess. I'm not sure that he's trying to apply lessons from Hamlet's life, but you're right that he's talking about a contrast between our lives and Hamlet's.
He's trying to say, like, remember remember
You're getting closer. You're a lot closer, Melissa.
He's going to say, like, he's saying those of us who know the most about his death and have, like, the most sorrow, remember what it's like to lose them. And, like,
I think you need to take a look at the transition. Yet. Not and. Not also. Not additional. It's a but. It's a yet. It's a contrast transition.
even though he's dead, we should still carry on.
We must carry on. We must think about ourselves. Yet so far hath discretion fought with nature. What is discretion? Hard choices, wisdom, making rational choices. What do you think our nature would be when somebody's dead? Be sad. He said, you know what? Our rational judgment is fighting with our mourning. We're sad, but we know we've got to keep going, and so we've got to think about ourselves. Makes sense for the speech, right? Okay, Hamlet's dead. We're all very sad. But you know what? That's all well and good, but we've got to think about ourselves too. Therefore, our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress to this warlike state, have we taken to wife.
I now made like a more background person the queen.
Oh, she was queen before. Oh yeah. She was former queen. Now she's queen again. Kind of like Jocasta, Oedipus's wife, who was married to his father, and she was queen, and then she was married to him, and she was queen. So he's like, to that end, I married the queen. Good enough. As 'twere with a defeated joy, with an auspicious and a dropping eye, with mirth and funeral, and with dirge and marriage, an equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. Well, I already said the taken to wife. So what's that big string all basically saying, Paul?
We're happy that there's marriage. We're sad that he's dead. It's kind of all muddled up. We don't know exactly how to feel.
I don't think I could have said it better myself. Thank you, Paul. I like it's all muddled up. We're not exactly sure how to feel. That's absolutely correct. And you see the contrast throughout the entire speech. We're sad that Hamlet's dead, but we've got to carry on. I'm carrying on through marriage. Remember what we talked about yesterday with genre? Marriage contrasts death. So Shakespeare's carrying that through in this. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along for all our thanks. I love this last bit.
is he talking to, like, whether
He's talking to the entire court. Right?
he's saying we haven't ignored all this is going on.
Right. We haven't ignored you. Thank you. There's something else in there that would be important to the overall play.
We haven't ignored you. There was support, not thank you for doing that.
You supported this marriage. Thank you. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdom, and saying we didn't ignore your advice, which have freely gone with this affair along, which supported this. Thanks. And by the way, that's important because unlike something like Agamemnon, those of you reading Agamemnon, remember when Clytemnestra kills Agamemnon and decides basically to stage a coup to take over the state, the people react how? They do not support. They become very angry until the troops come in and tell them to quit their whining. This is different. The people have gone along with this. And that's pretty important to the development of the overall play. All right, we have taken a lot more time with that than you would normally take with something like this. And most of the material that you will read a bit more quickly. You'll be able to paraphrase more easily. We just happen to tackle a difficult one because Hamlet is thick. He does a lot with every single line. The references, the images, the contrast, the character development, the plot development, everything in that play is relatively complicated and complex. The comedies are a bit simpler, but I still want you to practice the same method. So what I'd like you to do right now is talk in your group about a line. I want you to practice this. I hope that at least one member of your group has brought the Oxford School of Shakespeare, as I asked. And you can take a look and find a line in there and work together to see if you can practice this. By the way, do not find a single line of 3 words and say, hey, Miss Clarkson, we're done. I want you to find something substantial, preferably in Act 1. Often, people will open with speeches. Measure for Measure people, you've got a great speech right at the very beginning there. Long speech that can help you. Midsummer Night's Dream people as well. So often you can open with a big speech. Twelfth Night's got a big speech from Orsino at the beginning there as well. Okay?